Welcome everyone. Nice to see a few friendly faces and some new names to the group. Today's user drop-in, Spark user drop-in, is all about customer journeys versus or two operational processes. So we're going to go through a little bit of context. You can see, as I love to do, I've put a question on the front page there. I'd love it if you could put in the chat who you think your customers are while I'm just doing a bit of an intro to the session, or as we go through. We'll have a look at some of the context. We'll have a look at some examples in Spark. Yes, we will. We'll click around. We'll look at some how these user journeys versus operational processes can work, and we'll look at some features as we go through. And as I also like to do, I'll leave you with my 3 final thoughts. That's at that point you can add your experiences, you can add your thoughts on there as well, or any hints and tips, and also ask some questions as we go through. It's lovely to see some of you on video. Normally people aren't, but so if you do have questions as we go through, or if you want to wave or just cheer, clap, whatever it might be, please do feel free. So who are our customers? Brilliant. Thank you, Martin. People with ships. That's a great one. You deduce Martin's job or industry. People that need to map, analyze, and read processes. Great. I can see some people typing. Process operators. Cardia. If you're just bashing out the keyboard to see how long I'll wait, that's a cruel game to play. So we talk about customer journeys, and I think, well, firstly, it's good to sort of talk about what is a customer, and of course, the whole point of that question there was to sort of to demonstrate the diversity in what we call customers. So it completely depends, not just in what industry you're in, but also what department, what role you're in. So it could be completely external customers. Yeah, you could be a B2C customer company selling products to consumers. Yeah, that's quite a clear customer. That's probably the one we kind of automatically go to. Or you could be an internal IT team, and your customers could be, your colleagues, your peers, employees of that business. Brilliant. Thanks, Chris. Learners and students. That's a great one. I do love a student journey as a customer journey map. But if I could drill down into here, we've got customer journeys, a couple of different just textbook boilerplate descriptions of that. I'm not going to read out. I've put a bit of text in this. You can read it as we talk through. I'll pick out my key thoughts on this, and just going on doing a quick search and pulling out some of the kind of visuals that you see on there. This is the sort of thing I've experienced when people say we've mapped this out. We've got customer journeys. They're very visual. Yeah, they're very graphical, very marketing led. It's a deliverable that you want to engage people with. Put it on the wall, talk them through. Very colourful, very got these images and the like. I'm assuming people have seen this sort of context, this sort of processes, or this sort of customer journeys in their organisations. A few nods. Yeah, exactly. So really, really common. Whereas a operational process, I haven't put examples on here. They're all Spark users. What we would call an operational process. It's that boxes and lines, it's that activities, the roles, all that other extra information that we go through. And I was thinking about what are the pros and cons. In true Spark style, we're not saying one's better than the other. And you can see I've used the glossary to put the definitions on here. But again, the customer journeys are great. They're great for understanding the customer experience. They've got that focus. It's taking that, whatever that customer is, and picking out those steps that they're doing. So it's shining a light on that experience mode of things. Whereas operational processes, they're brilliant at adding those roles, those responsibilities more. You can get quite a lot more detail into the right operational processes, and they're used for different purposes. I've picked out compliance and consistency. They could be for anything. Yeah, it's that complete end-to-end flow that we're looking at. Some of the cons of the customer journeys that I focused on here, I mentioned it just in there, they're very graphical, they're very marketing-led, and that can be kind of a detractor at times. Yes, they look pretty, but to keep them up to date, they're almost a point-in-time example a lot of the time. That's what we've seen, and it doesn't show that complexity sometimes. If I scroll back up, yes, there's lots of information on here, but it hasn't got that hierarchy of an operational process, hasn't got that drill down detail that you can capture. And to balance it out, I'm again not saying any one is better than the other, but the operational processes, they can be disconnected from that customer's perspective. As we look at some examples, the customer is one box of many in that end-to-end, which can bring value. But if you're purely a service delivery team or a customer experience team focused on the customer, you can lose. You can't see the wood for the trees sometimes. So there's pros and cons and different reasons why you might choose one over the other. If I come back to the top, the Spark approach, and those of you that have seen any of my recent drop-ins, this is a graphic I like to sort of remind what we're here with Spark and the Spark approach in general. Is about giving that single version of the truth. Yeah, that one place to go where we join all these perspectives up. So when you look on the left, all the different departments, all the different people that are making it, that are in your organisation. Again, this is not a complete list, but you can see we've got service delivery teams, IT, HR, continuous improvement teams, and then on the right you've got the content they might be wanting to engage with. Yeah, and so we've got processes in here, we've got customer journeys, job specs, training guides, all this different names of content, but it's all around understanding what we need to do or what the business does. And then Spark is about bringing all these audiences and these content together. So when we talk about customer journeys and processes, the real power that we're trying to get from Spark is to join those worlds up. Yeah, and let's have a look at how we can do that. So I've got a few different examples here. We've got one where it's a pure customer journey. I'm sure people will be able to argue with me on that one in terms of, is this a proper customer journey? Again, not saying we're perfect at this, but it's a good example of that. I've got another example where it's a bit of a hybrid approach. Actually looking at a customer journey, but then using that within the same map, coming down and adding some of that information against processes, and then a pure process approach. Is that a customer journey? I'll let you decide that. But just to show a little, the variations of how we can manage that. So if I click on example 1, you can see here, this is not a Spark process, and we've got what we're doing with this one is we're using icons, note boxes and icons around the side, and to create pseudo swim lanes along here, just with boxes and like. And you can see here it's about focusing along the top with the customer, and then using the different objects within Spark to lay this information out in a way that we want to do here. So again, just one example of how it can look and feel, and you can annotate it, and you can do things in here which are more akin to customer journeys. So we can start to add note boxes down here, and you can add formatting and colouring and all this sort of stuff, and that's what people generally do. So they pick out the visiting a website, and then you can just visually put this information in. Yeah, so you might say what are the pains, what are the gains, etc. in here, and then we can start to use things like headings. If you haven't done this, just to recap on some of the functionality, you can put information in, and we can see what's going on here. So I'd like to show you some little features which are relevant at this point, but also relevant elsewhere. If I hit S, I can change the style. I can put a fill color in. I can make it 100% opacity. I can change the text color to white, and we're having some fun making it a bit more graphical, a bit more visual. Does anyone know how to add icons into Spark? Let's have a quick look at that while we're here. You'll notice on the bottom of any the activity box and the note box, we can see we've got these little here. So we can create links. We can do things like add icons. I can either click on this, or I can just type it on my box, and we can see here we've got a list of different things here. If I resize the box, it will come up with that icon there, and you can change the size, and you can do things like that. A little tip and trick, or a little tip on here, if you were then trying to replicate this box, and if I just drag out another box from one of the anchor points, it will drop me a box of the same style and the same size as the previous one. So a little tip and trick. And if you don't want it connected, you can just delete that, and away you go. So again, you can annotate these maps, these journeys, similar as you would in those graphical versions I showed you before. Might not look as slick, but you're getting all that information laid out in the way that you want. Now, as I said, the real power comes when you start to hook these journeys off into actual processes. So the way we can do that is we can pick out any one of these boxes. I know this one's got one which I want to link to. If I click on the attachment icon on here, the best way is to add in a navigation link. Yeah. So if you haven't played around with these, this is your prompt to do so. I can click add navigation link, and I can select here. In this instance, this is a journey. Yeah, so it's just a single level diagram. We're going to map out into another process, and I'm going to go into my order to cash process here. So in the left-hand pane, you're selecting that process. I know it's for this one. And then here you can select the box or the process. So I know there's a process orders box in my process. You can select here. You can filter down if you know the type of objects you're linking to. Hook onto that. I can create a reverse link, so it will link from that diagram of that process into this one. So that's often the case. I can even enter the detail if I want to go into that detail of that process. Let's play around. Let's put that in there. Yeah. I can give it an explicit name if I wish, or it would just default. Hit confirm on the left again, and I can see I've now created an order to cash process. Oh, didn't mean to click straight away, but yeah, it's taken me there. Yeah, brilliant. So if I come back in my content, what have I done? Oh, giving it something to think about. Let me refresh that. Come down that way. There we go. So we've got our processes. So you can start to link those two worlds up. Yeah. If it, so you're not just looking at that customer's perspective, we're linking it into the operational process. If I close that tab and come back to a hybrid approach, I'll show you what I mean by that. We've got a simple kind of very, very simple user journey, but I'm showing you the principles here, or customer journey, sorry, where they're purchasing, they're onboarding, and they're using something. Yeah. And what I've done here, or what we've got here, is we've just basically got an attachments, and if I click on here, so I've created a box and I've used that to copy out the box. If I click on the attachment again, I'm just setting the visibility. So actually, if I thought purchase was actually it wasn't as bad as that, I can hide this one, show this one, and it's showing me that visual on the diagram, yeah, on the canvas. But what we're doing is against the no, not here, sorry. If I draw back down, you can see here we're getting to a bit of a process view on here. So similar to as before, but we're putting more information into the activity boxes. Still using the extra information here, making it visual. So especially if you're printing it out or showing it on the screen, it's there. But if I click on the attachment icon here, as well as the graphical kind of visualization using icons, colored icons there, I'm also adding in a custom field. Yeah, I've called this one friction. You'll have your own approach, yeah, your own standard. But we're saying we're using custom field. It's okay. A little bit of formatting on there to make it again visual. Yeah, but a lot of the customer journeys are visual, and that's how we're doing this one. Yeah, so we're using a combination of the high level boxes and then drilling down into that. Yeah. Other benefits of doing this approach. We can see if I come into the reporting, I'm not going to click around the reports, but we've got all those business tools. So if I wanted to pull out all the friction points, especially if this is quite an expansive process or maybe multiple processes that you want to pull the information from, you can do that quickly using the business tools and the like. The other one I wanted to look at here is, because this one's got a lot more links in terms of pointing to other parts of your process library. So it's doing exactly the same as I showed you before, but this is a bit more complete. After saying I'm not going to show you business tools, I'm going to show you the related processes. This is quite cool. Yeah. So I click on related processes. The current process is in the middle. So I can see here we've got customer journey, hybrid example, and then at each activity point, it's showing you where else it's linking to in your library. That's pretty cool. Yeah. And more than likely, you'll have it coming in from other places as well. If you've not played with this, play around. Obviously, you need to do some of that linking. But if I click on the little icon here, it will focus that related process into there. Fortunately, I haven't got the. If I click on there, oh no, something's not going on there. No, it doesn't like that. So in normal, if it wasn't my demo environment, it would just click that. It would put that one in, and you can start to see. So you can start to click around to see how your processes are connected up. That's not customer journey related. That's product related. So it doesn't matter what you're linking up. They can do that. Who is it who said student journey? Christopher, brilliant. So my last example, again, as I said, you might argue this isn't a journey, a customer journey. I just wanted to show you some experience that we've had elsewhere. So if I look at this is a pure process approach, and it's basically calling a process a journey, and this is a student journey. And it's one of my points that I've seen over the many years is it's people call things different things. Yeah, and so it really is about what do you mean by a journey or a process or a workflow or a task. In my mind, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, actually, you're putting together a picture of what is happening in your world for a particular purpose. So you can see here we've got an example student journey. This is by no means focused on the student. This is actually how do we go from having a university portfolio to alumni, in this instance, or certificates and the like. Now, what I would suggest here, if you do want to start to focus down on a particular persona, a particular role, we can use the highlighting. So if I click on highlighting, I can click to roles in this instance. I know students here, I can click on student here, and it will highlight the parts of this end-to-end flow where that student appears. Yeah. So I know I'm blurring the lines a little bit, and it's all about terminology. But if I start to drill down and engage with a course, you can see here, use university resources, manage assessment. Got a little bit box down here. There's not much information on this. It's just a bit of demo content, but you can start to see how a student interacts with across this end to end. Of course, if you then started to use those links, those navigation links within the process, it would make it even easier to click through and use that highlight. So again, hopefully, if you've not seen this feature, it's just here on the bottom left. You can remember to switch it off if you're not using it, because you'll be looking at a process thinking, why is it all grayed out and the like. But again, you can sort of half flick that, you can flick that off, and that will work across all sorts of things. Yeah. So if you wanted to say highlight all those friction points that are good and bad, or middle, mediocre or bad, you can do that as well. So and combinations of a really nice way to highlight aspects of an end-to-end flow. So quite different examples we kind of looked in there, and I think one of the takeaway messages there, it doesn't matter, define what you mean by a journey and a process, and get the information in a way that can Kaja, can you please show us again how you see the process relationships? Yes, definitely. I'll come back to this one because I know it's got more in here. It's a business tool. Yeah. So if I drill down in here, we've made those navigation links into against the activity steps, or if I come into edit mode, I'll show you, and the inputs and outputs. So you can add those in there. They can be within the process or outside. And if I come to the business tools and go to related processes at the bottom left, that's where you get this view here. So current process, research to market. I think it's all clickable. Yeah. So be careful where you're clicking, and you can show where that goes. So we've had a look at some examples now. 3 final thoughts. Please do add yours into this as well, because again, this is just my experience. So customer journeys and we're saying operational process, it could be anything. I think are two sides of the same coin. Yeah, they're just another way of looking at what you do or what you need to do. I wouldn't say one is better than the other, but the real power comes if you're looking at them all and they're connected. That's the real point. One, customer journeys are focused on the customers and their certain experience, that kind of path through the end to end, whereas the processes generally are more complete. That's not the right word, is it? They're more end to end. They might be cross departmental, across the whole business, but getting that visibility in there. Not having them joined up, I think, will lead to inconsistent experiences, inconsistent flows, and the last sort of final thought here is start small. Pick one journey and link it to its processes. That's not focused on this drop-in. That's a bit of advice we give all the time. Is just start. If you want to start doing some journey mapping, brilliant. Just start small and then see how it grows from there. But using Spark, I think to visualize those is a win. Yeah.